it's end capping anybody's cry for help and anybody's struggles. A lot of us are dealing with the mental load of motherhood. And even though many partners are stepping up, it's still not equal.
I agree.
And then you talk about corporate work structure and lack of systematic support to help parents, the unaffordable childcare. These are things we actually need help with. And these are things that are probably the real reason we're struggling so much. But when we joke, oh, it just sounds like you need a glass of wine, or we imply that that's going to make everything better, it really end caps somebody's struggle. It makes light of it and essentially kind of stymies any sort of effort to give that person maybe some help they really need, genuinely.
Welcome to Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, the world's #1 no bullshit health and fitness podcast.
Are you ready to cut the crap with your diet and exercise, get strong as fuck, and build a healthy relationship with food? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's go. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, join our Patreon where you get exclusive content, which consists of monthly workouts you can do at home or at the gym, monthly challenges that are either strength, habit, or mindset based, and access to over 100 plus low-calorie, high-protein, family-friendly meals. These are all designed by a professional chef who is certified in nutrition. These recipes are already in MyFitnessPal for easy fucking tracking. New recipes are also added each week.
We believe that fitness is for everyone, so this is our way of getting you started on your health and fitness journey at a price most everyone can afford. So what the fuck are you waiting for? We'll see you in the Patreon. Hi, Celeste.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm psyched to be here.
You know, my love for all things like alcohol related topics. And so this is something near and dear to my heart. So I'm very excited. I've been asked a lot if we would have someone to talk about alcohol on the podcast. I'm like, yes,
good.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it. If it's okay, introduce yourself, a little bit about you, and then we'll just, go from there.
Shoot the shit.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay. So my name is Celeste Yvonne. I am I think I'm 42, but I'm not sure. I don't do numbers. So don't ever ask me about numbers. I think I might be 43, but I can't remember. I have 2 kids. I live in Reno, Nevada, and I grew up in the Bay Area, a pretty generic family, but my father was an alcoholic my whole life. And that was fine and dandy until it wasn't, as with most addiction issues. He was a high functioning alcoholic for a long time. But when he was 52, I was 15, I was in high school. He had a severe stroke and he was disabled from that point on. But that did not stop him. He was a go-getter through and through. And he struggled with alcohol his entire life. He passed away a couple of years ago, but ever since that day at 52, he lost much of his cognitive functions and was living with a nurse. It was a very rough second half of his life.
Wow.
And even then, he still tried to drink. He ultimately was bedridden, pooping in a diaper. And I think if he still had that choice, he would have chosen to continue drinking. And you would think, growing up with that his children wouldn't touch alcohol with a 10-foot pole. And it's funny, I have 2 siblings, and my older sister, she avoided alcohol her whole life. She's never touched the stuff. But I wanted to take my own route, and I decided that I was going to use this opportunity to have the upper hand and figure out how to drink in a way that was different than my dad. And I was going to do it different. I saw the path he took, and I knew all the secrets to avoid that and still live my best liquored up life. And I was just fooling myself for a really long, long time. And it really came to bite me in the ass after having children, where, I like to say parenting hungover is the greatest hell on earth.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And yeah, I could not do both. I could not be the mom I wanted to be and still continue to drink the way I drank. So I quit. It'll be 5 years this December. And now I talk about it, I write about it, and I'm writing a book about it that comes out next year.
Love that. Yeah. Alcohol and parenting. I read your blog. I think it was called Dear Husband, the Dear Husband post. I need help. And that was me. I could relate to that to a T. I've been 7 years sober this past August, and parenting was really fucking rough. And I felt like my husband at the time was building his business, and I was at home with the kids all the time, and I felt like I was doing everything. Like I needed help, but did I ask for it? No, but still. So yeah, parenting and alcohol and the mommy wine culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, all these things just kind of built on top of each other to reach this breaking point for me, which ultimately is what led to my sobriety. But when I first became a mom, the mental load of motherhood, which is this all-encompassing emotional labor, mental labor, and physical labor that goes into parenting and is often carried by the mother, not always, but often. Mm-hmm. It's all consuming and it's exhausting, and it often goes unnoticed unless something goes wrong, and then everybody notices.
Yeah.
That was really hard, and I was not prepared for that. And me and my husband did not do any due diligence around that. I just took it on because I thought that was my job. Like, I'm the mom now. This is what I'm supposed to do. And that came to bite me in the ass real quick. And my husband and I had to have this heart-to-heart conversation where I'm like, I'm drowning. Like, I can't do this. I know this is how our parents did it. This cannot be the way we do it. Oh, and by the way, I'm working a job on top of all this. Like, why is it that you get to go back to work and your life isn't completely upended, and my life is complete chaos post-baby? This just doesn't seem fair. And of course, my husband's looking at me like, I've been trying to help you since the day the kid was born. You just keep pushing me away. So it was just this total miscommunication and me trying to control everything that led to this spiral. And once we were able to kind of talk through that, I think that we were able to get in a better place relationship-wise, but there's still emotional and invisible labor and work that goes into my job as the mother that really led me to drink more than ever. And I started sneaking drinks in when people weren't looking. And I got to a place where I was really uncomfortable with the amount I was drinking. And I can tie a lot of that back now to the mental load of motherhood and all the shit I was just trying to contain and not talk about and not say, I need some help. I think it's a lot easier to just kind of rely on a crutch like alcohol than get loud and say, I'm not going to be able to continue doing this any longer. Mm-hmm. This shit's hard.
What do you say to the thought of using wine or drinking as a means to relax at the end of the day, being a mother in general?
Yeah, no, I think if people can do that with one drink, that's good on them. I say the same thing with pot. People say, well, what do you think about mom smoking pot? I don't know much about pot. I don't know much about positive benefits of alcohol, but if you can have one drink and that feels like enough and that doesn't leave you with a debilitating hangover the next day, and you're aware of the risks that come with even moderate drinking, then good on you. Like I do all sorts of shit that's not good for me, but you gotta take the good with the bad because we only get this one life. Yeah, you gotta pick your poison. For me, like the idea of having one drink of any form of alcohol sounds just stupid and awful and crazy. So that would never be me. And it took me a long time to get to this place where I'm like, I would rather have none, because one drink ultimately makes me want to drink the whole bottle.
Oh yeah. What is that saying? One is not enough. And 10 is too many.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very true. The same. It's like, if I opened a bottle of wine, I'm not having a glass. Like, what's the point? I mean,
yeah, it's just a tease.
And I would look at other people, I'm like, how could you just drink one drink? Like, there's no way.
Nursing the drink, man, that gets me every time. somebody who can just kind of have a couple sips and not finish the glass, I will look at them like they have two heads. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, because there are some people out there like that. I'm one of them. And I pretty much gave up drinking a couple months ago myself, but I'm not, I feel like if I had one now, I'd be fine. And I'm not addicted to it. I'm not an addict in that sense. So I feel comfortable about it, but it just doesn't serve me in my life anymore. And
yeah,
so I'm one of those people that can have that one drink and nurse it for a while and be fine.
Yeah. And I think, and that's something that when I first quit drinking, I really had to have kind of this come to Jesus moment where it's like, not everybody has this urge to keep drinking once they start. Like, I have to recognize that it's not unique. It happens to a lot of people, but it doesn't happen to everybody. And I had to stop going into like this black void of nobody can ever drink again.
Right.
It's not realistic and it's not effective. It's not a good conversation starter. I wasn't making very many friends with that, but I think about the people in my own life who can very easily have one drink, they enjoy it, and that's it. They're good. And I think that's, something we always need to keep in mind when it comes to alcohol, that it does serve a positive purpose for some people, despite the negative things we are learning about its health implications. And it's the same for me, with some of the things I do. Like, I love how Beth talks about drinking Diet Coke. Diet Coke is my thing. Like, I will drink Diet Coke till the day I die. And I'm good with that. So don't tell me, about how it's got sweeteners. It's killing me. Like,
yeah,
this is the bed I choose to die on. So
yeah,
I try to think about it from that way when people say, I like to have my glass of wine. I don't think, when I think about mommy wine culture, and when I describe mommy wine culture, I describe it as this narrative that jokes or implies that parents need alcohol to parent their children. And when I talk about it, I try to remember and I try to describe in my message that it's not the alcohol that's the problem with mommy wine culture. It is the message and the implications of saying our children are the reason we drink. And I say that as the daughter of an alcoholic. I say that as a mom who had her own drinking struggles. I think it has some really negative correlations to it. First, it's end capping anybody's cry for help and anybody's struggles. A lot of us are dealing with the mental load of motherhood. And even though many fathers or partners are stepping up, it's still not equal.
I agree.
And then you talk about corporate work structure and lack of systematic support to help parents, the unaffordable childcare. These are things we actually need help with. And these are things that are probably the real reason we're struggling so much. But when we joke, oh, it just sounds like you need a glass of wine, or we imply that that's going to make everything better, it really encaps somebody's struggle. And it makes light of it and essentially kind of stymies any sort of effort to give that person maybe some help they really need, genuinely. And then the other part that I hate, is that, alcohol is not it, right? We know alcohol is not a healthy coping mechanism, whether you're drinking 1 or 6 glasses. It would be like saying, my children whine, mommy needs a line. It's like this. You wouldn't say that, right? Nobody
right.
And yet we've made it okay to say that about alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
We're just offering drugs to people to just get them to relax. And what they really genuinely might need is some actual support.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things I really find problematic with mommy wine culture. And, you see it's so prevalent all over social media. It's become so normalized. And you can see why it's so popular. It gets tons of likes, tons of follows, but it's a very problematic message. And I want to bring that to light. It does not come without consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not to mention, like, what is the effect on the kids? Maybe you're not even an alcoholic mom, but the fact that you're like having booze parties for your 2-year-old,
right?
Or you're even saying things like, gosh, you're making mommy want to drink. Imagine what the child doesn't even know what that means. But as it, grows older, it's like, okay, yeah, like my mom had to get drunk because of me.
Or, at sporting events and things like that. And our parents, mom and dad, both are on the sport sidelines, with a cup full of whatever liquor or whatever concoction they can mix up with. No, it's just water. It's an adult sippy box and things like that. It's like, come on, what kind of an example are we setting here?
Well, and we're showing kids that as humans, we need alcohol to have fun and to function or to get through boring outings or whatever you want to call it. But as a parent, I want to teach my children the opposite. I want to teach, I deal with this conversation with my kids every fucking day. Like, I'm bored. How do we find ways for you to engage in healthy activity, healthy coping mechanisms that aren't relying on alcohol? But if you are showing them something very different than you're teaching them, ultimately, they're going to follow suit. That's scientifically what we've seen.
And, as a society, we don't either make it easy for people that aren't drinkers to actually not drink because, for example, when I quit drinking, I got into running. Little did I know that races were like the top tier for alcoholics. I'm like, they're giving away beers at the end of a race. I'm like, what is happening?
At a health event where we're celebrating how amazing the human body is, and then we're congratulating them with a free.
You just did something really good for yourself. Here's a drink. Let's fix that.
Yeah. Or yoga, wine and yoga. Literally anywhere you go, there's alcohol, and people are, so that's also difficult. And then asking for that help, the stigma around admitting that you may have a problem. That's tough.
It is.
So I think you end up hiding it even more.
Yeah, I don't think people want to go there in that conversation. I think asking for help in and of itself is part of how we got to this situation where we are, where, women's drinking is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
And I think that's in part because we struggle to ask for help. Now, put on top of that, now a woman with a drinking problem who got herself in this position by not being able to ask for help, what is she supposed to do? Like, she feels double fucked at this point.
Yeah. What was your, bottom, and how did you start to get help?
Yeah. So I had convincers. They're called convincers leading up to it for years, probably. Little things, little moments that stopped me in my tracks that made me think, oh, that's not good. I remember a moment with my 3-year-old at the time where I went up to get another glass of wine, and he didn't understand because I had just had a glass. Like, if I was thirsty, why would I need another drink? And I remember being like, that sucks. Like, I'm thinking about the memories he's forming in his mind around his mom with moments like that. And then I remember one time I was sitting at church. I would go to church in early motherhood because they had free daycare. And it was like the only time I ever got a fucking break. So I would put the kids in the kids' daycare and I would sit at church, and it would be like an hour break for me from just the exhaustion of motherhood. And I remember turning in one of the prayer requests that said in the pews in front of you. And I said, I am sabotaging everything good in my life. And I remember wondering, I don't really know what I mean by that, but now I do. Now I know exactly what I meant by that. And then the last thing that I think that really got me was my 3-year-old at the time was showing some signs of behavioral difficulties at school. And we were getting concerned calls from the school. He was acting out. He was hitting and kicking. And he was having meltdowns. And at the time, the doctor said to me, there's really nothing we can do. He's 3. He's not old enough for an evaluation. And I was like, you got to give me something. Like, don't make me leave here without anything that we can work on, because I'm not just going to sit this out for a couple of years and wait and see. And he says, well, kids like this really thrive on structure and routine and a dependable environment. And I remember getting kicked in the gut and being like, I am not giving that to my child. I need to do something. It all kind of came to a head over Christmas one year, 2017, when I wasn't drinking a ton, but I was drinking like 2 or 3 nights every weekend for holiday parties. And one morning I went to work and I just broke out in a cold sweat. My heart started racing, and I just immediately in my head, I thought I was having a stroke like my dad. And my head just went there. Like, what if this is it? Like, what if life as I know it is going to change and my kids no longer will have me to support them, and I will become incapacitated like my father was? Like, it was such a moment for me, a rock bottom moment for me, where I realized like I was playing Russian roulette and I had to make a change. And it was a really scary day. I remember, going home crying that day, thinking, I quit at adulting. Like I was given the card to go back to the kiddie table. Like everything, as fun as I knew it, was no longer on the table, and my life was now over. And it took me probably a year of my sobriety and really white knuckling it and feeling like I'm just this victim, to see like all the positive things that came out of that year of sobriety, and how much better I felt, and what a better parent I was, and how my relationships had improved, and how I could do and feel things in a way that I hadn't felt in years. Just being able to trust my body again. I remember people would say, I could tell something felt off, and that's how I knew I was getting sick. And I would think to myself, what does that feel like? Because I feel off every day, and I'm never sure if it's from a bottle of wine the night before, or if I'm actually getting sick. And I can actually, trust my intuition again. So everything changed after that. And I finally started to see the blessings of sobriety for what they were. And that's when I started to really realize that as a society, we speak about sobriety in a very condemning way. Sit down, shut up, go find a AA meeting somewhere, and don't bother us with your problems. And that was all the more reason why I wanted to get loud about it, because that pissed me off.
Yeah.
And I saw where that took my dad. My dad was in and out of AA for the second half of his life, drinking the entire time. Just sit down, shut up, just stay out of our way and pretend like you're getting better, but don't involve us. And that just infuriated me.
Yeah.
All the more reason to get loud.
Yes, I'm with you on that, getting loud about it, because I think we should be normalizing not drinking rather than normalizing drinking. It's like, it's ass backwards.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. Especially now with so many people talking out about alcohol, which I love. And Beth's been doing this for a while. And I've recently started talking more about the dangers of just drinking in moderation. They're actually redefining what moderation is for alcohol right now anyway. It used to be a few drinks a week. Now they're saying like, we probably shouldn't even be drinking that much, which I love to see more people talking about that. But really, from a health perspective, alcohol is the third leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Like just that little fact alone, the first being tobacco, third, second being diet and exercise. So like, these are all things that we have direct control over.
Yeah. And it's pushed on us both through advertising, marketing, and through our own society. Like we are our own worst enemy here. We just push it on each other so much. You would never suspect so many people die, not just from addiction, but from all the things correlated with getting drunk, or, even just getting inebriated enough to do something stupid. And yet, here we are, blaming, more often than not, we're blaming the drinker and not the drink. And it's a very problematic message, because at the root of all this is the ethanol, right? It is the drug that is so easily accessible and available to us that it's almost hard not to go somewhere or do something without having access to it, which is yet another reason why I think it's really important for us to be having these conversations with our children, that, we have to stop normalizing alcohol as a part of everything we do and every way we process any sort of emotion, because we will just carry this on, even as we learn about the consequences of alcohol, because guess what? Alcohol is addictive. It's not like people can just quickly shut down and go, gosh, I didn't realize it was so bad for me, push the off button. For many of us, people like me, it's not like that. You can't just turn it around, especially when it's a habit or a thought pattern that we've had since childhood.
Yeah.
I know, Beth, you would probably agree with this. Some of the biggest mistakes in your life, some of the biggest regrets in your life is alcohol was involved. I know me personally, I regret in life, alcohol was definitely behind them. I was definitely very drunk when those things were happening.
Nothing good ever came about.
Correct.
Well, and talk about ass backwards. When you think about, we drink when we're happy, we drink when we're sad, we drink to celebrate, we drink to mourn. It's a depressant. So it's so normalized to drink to celebrate, but it doesn't make any sense. Why are we drinking a depressant during our greatest moments and literally numbing ourselves down in the highlights of our life? Like when you look at it at a high level, it's strange that we are here when it's very counterintuitive. But that's just where we are. And I think it's just how it's been for a really long time. And it's pushed on us. Obviously the alcohol industry is a $1 billion industry. It is ingrained in everything we do. It's ingrained in everywhere we go. So it's not a coincidence. And yet it is very counterintuitive.
Yeah. I mean, even through the pandemic, guess what was called a whatever, they were essential business is alcohol. Why? Yeah. Because we have mass hysteria.
Yeah. The quarantini.
Yeah. The quarantini. Yeah.
So me and some sober friends of mine, that's when we started the Sober Mom Squad, was right at the start of the pandemic, because AA and any sort of recovery center shut down like overnight. And people who were trying to quit drinking or stay sober had no support. So we immediately switched to kind of this virtual means of offering support to each other, which was a real disruptor, in the recovery area, because up until then, for the most part, if you wanted to go to a meeting, they were in person. And one of the things that's I really want to say was so important about that is for mothers, especially mothers of young children, going to a meeting was not an easy accomplishment. It was hard to do. It was hard to do without standing out. You certainly couldn't be a fly on the wall, because generally you would either have to find a babysitter and explain why you need a babysitter, or you'd drag your kids to the meeting. And being able to switch recovery virtually, where you could do it from your own home in the privacy of your phone with, no name and no picture if you wanted, and just listen, really changed the game for mothers, especially. And that was such an important transition. But something else I do want to say about recovery during COVID was, obviously that was a really hard time, especially for mothers. We saw with some of the Census Bureau data that mostly women, especially mothers, quit their jobs. And that's not a coincidence. They were doing that because they had to homeschool now. And it was generally considered the mother's job, again, because either the jobs these women had were in service industry, where those jobs were being shut down anyway, or they were not the primary breadwinners. So it made more sense for them to quit their job and stay home. So you see more mothers doing additional work, going through the transition of either not having a job or trying to homeschool while having a job working from home. And the drinking during COVID ramped up more than ever. Not to mention we're being pushed by everywhere, especially the alcohol industry, to drink. I read a tweet that says basically COVID rules are airport rules. If you want to drink at 9 a.m., you can. And I think that was kind of the mentality. Like, this is basically just do whatever the hell you want. We're all just trying to survive. If you want to drink Bloody Marys in the morning while you're homeschooling your kids, do it. And it put us in a very precarious situation. And in some cases, it did feel like the alcohol industry was the only one recognizing that mothers were really struggling. So from a marketing perspective, good on them, right? They're
Right.
like, no, this audience really needs our attention right now. And nobody else was doing that, nobody else was reaching out saying, oh my God, we have put these mothers in a huge predicament. And it resonated, for worse or worse, it did resonate with women, and they saw the numbers spike up in droves as a result. So it was a scary time. And now we've got to get back into, hopefully, a better place where we do have a lot of women, going through recovery groups right now whose drinking really spiked up during COVID, and they're trying to get back into a better place in their life. But it did not do anybody any favors when it came to addiction or just rise in alcohol misuse.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the long-term data that comes from this, in terms of chemical dependency, alcohol dependency, and health impacts it has on us 5, 10, 20 years from now,
Yeah, I think it's going to be very telling when we get that data back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So tell us more about the Sober Mom Squad. It sounds like something I want to be a part of.
Oh yeah, come on in.
Can I come in? Yes. All right.
Yeah.
I want to hear about it.
So the Sober Mom Squad started in March 2020. Me and 4 other women on Instagram, basically Emily Paulson, Highlight Real Recovery. She's like, I see people are struggling. Like, I see like the shit's going down. Who wants to do something about this? And me and a couple other women in the sober space said, yeah, absolutely. And together we started a free weekly meeting for anyone who identifies as a mom and who is looking to explore an alcohol-free lifestyle. And those meetings were just every Wednesday, 10 a.m. And, we had probably 50 or 60 people each week just joining. Just either it was for me, that was the first time I've ever been in a recovery meeting at all. Because otherwise I just like, where do I put my kids? I don't understand, how this would work. And a lot of women, that was their first time experience. And they were either early in recovery, right when the pandemic hit, or they knew they had to make a change quickly. And from there, we just kept growing bigger and stronger. And Emily transitioned it into something where we have 23 meetings a week. We've got, 4 or 5 meetings a day. She put together a whole app. We have expert speakers coming in. I mean, we have all sorts of cool groups. We've got groups for parents of neurodivergent children. We've got groups for women who, struggle with eating disorders. I'm one of those. There's a huge correlation there, by the way, between substance abuse and eating disorders. Like they go hand in hand. So that's a common thing we hear in our group meetings. Each week I lead Writing for Recovery, which is a group where we do writing together, either journaling or writing that they want to put out there in the world. And we have a woo-woo room where we talk about the moon cycles. I mean, like, there's everything you could ask for.
That sounds really awesome.
It's great. And it's the only time I've been able to find a true community in recovery. I didn't realize how valuable that was until you don't realize how important it is until you have it. And now it's like, these are some of my best friends. And I talk to them about everything, not just recovery, and these are women that I have been talking to and connecting with almost weekly since March of 2020. So it's been a really great way to connect with other women, because when you do quit drinking, it can be very isolating. I probably only know 2 people in my community of Reno, Nevada, who are also sober moms. So now to have a group where I can connect with sober moms from around the country 3 or 4 times a day if I wanted, it's very valuable, because I do feel like there's something unique about sobriety and motherhood that if you know, you know.
Yeah. And AA is not for everybody.
Right. And, I've never been to AA. I heard really good things about it. I know a lot of my friends in recovery credit AA to saving their lives. But I had just such a hard time watching my dad go to AA while still drinking. It left such a bad taste in my mouth that I never tried it. And then when I knew I needed to quit drinking, I had, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. And I was trying to keep this secret. I didn't tell anybody when I quit drinking. I just kept it real hush hush. I mean, I only told my husband and my mom, and I underplayed it big time. I was like, yeah, I just really need to cut down. They didn't know about, the closet drinking. They didn't know any of that. So for me to be like, yeah, can you watch the kids every day for the next 90 days so I can attend AA would really kind of put some red flags out. And I wasn't mentally prepared for that. But I do feel like if anybody who's in a recovery space now, because even AA has gone virtual. I mean, there's a much easier way for folks to find the resources and support they need without having to put all those further considerations into mind and to further essentially weigh down their mental load. You can just do this without all that additional burden.
Yep. I like that. What would you say to someone that is questioning their relationship with alcohol? I get that question a lot. They're like, what, they ask me how I quit, or what did you do, or what can I do? I feel like I may have a problem, but they just don't know like which route to take.
Yeah. And one thing that's so amazing is there are so many different approaches now. Like there's no one size fits all. And what I always tell people when they're looking to better understand, if they need to quit drinking or if they just need to cut back, is to think about from, their own personality standpoint, what would work for them from a recovery standpoint or just a quitting standpoint. Are you a one day at a time person, or do you need to set a goal, a measurable goal? Like, do you need to do Sober October? Do you need to commit to a program? Annie Grace has her 30-day alcohol experiment. I always encourage people to try something like that.
That's what I usually say. Give yourself a 30-day challenge.
Yeah. Dopamine Nation was a great book that also said, like, you can't even understand what kind of effects something like alcohol or sugar or game addiction is having on you until you take at least 30 days off. You can't take a 2-week break with this stuff. It's not going to be as effective and you won't see the true benefits. You really need to take 30 days off to have a real definitive understanding of how you feel and how being away from that, whatever it is, whether it's the dopamine high, whether it's the gaming, whatever that you were concerned with, what it feels like without it. And then you can do another evaluation. Then you can say, how do I feel? Do the pros outweigh the cons? Am I willing to keep going? That kind of thing. And I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yep.
So what I told myself, I said, I'm not going to promise myself I'm X amount of days. I said, I'm just done drinking and I'm not going to tell myself I can never have it again. Because I don't believe in, for myself, I know I don't operate well that way with timelines and deadlines, and I can't do this and I can't do that. So it's like, I'm just not going to do it right now. I don't want it. One day maybe that changes, but right now I don't need it and it doesn't serve me.
And so Matt, when you did that, did you tell anybody, or did you just say, this is my new game plan? And did you read any books or anything, or did you just quit cold turkey?
I just quit cold turkey. I told Beth actually almost right away. I made this decision after I came home from a trip to Nashville, and I just had horrible anxiety. And I was on my walk, and I texted Beth. I was like, Beth, you know what? I said I'm done drinking. And then I just said the same thing to her. I said I'm not done drinking forever. I'm not going to tell myself that, but I'm done drinking. But no, I didn't read any books or anything like that. And also, just working with Beth on this podcast and all the content over the last year plus has really opened my eyes to a lot of things too, diving into the health non-benefits of drinking and the impact it can have on us. And I just feel like I'm being a huge hypocrite if I'm out getting drunk, where I'm preaching balance and a healthy lifestyle. Because as we know, getting drunk is extremely, there's no benefit of doing that. It's all bad for your health. So I just felt like a huge hypocrite too.
It blows me away how many people in the fitness industry still push drinking.
It's amazing. It's so sad. It's so sad.
It is.
And being inclusive of smoking, like, yeah, don't worry, we were not going to take your cigarettes away from you. Yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah, and that's the angle that we take too, is like this asshole sitting here telling us diet soda is killing us, but then they have a whiskey and literally like they post videos of them drinking and glorifying drinking. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, really?
Yeah.
That's what pisses me off. And that's the angle that I kind of take.
I mean, when you're going down the cereal aisle and you're saying this is poison, right? But then you go buy a bottle of wine and get shit-faced on the weekend, but you're actually drinking an actual poison, like a literal, actual, like certified fucking poison.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes no sense.
Make it make sense.
And yet, I have to ask you, how much pushback do you get when you are speaking to clients and you're like, hey, if you're going to do this right, and if you really want to achieve your goals, you're going to have to take a break from drinking. I mean, what do you say to them, and what kind of pushback do you get?
I actually don't get too much pushback because most of the time they already know that it's an issue. I think more they want support in the way of how can I make myself feel better without having that? Because they know I'm a recovering alcoholic. They usually come to me because they're struggling and they either want to limit it or get rid of it altogether. And I think a lot of it is some of them really struggle with the addiction part of it. And then some of them just kind of struggle with the act of relieving stress with it.
And also the fear of completely upending their social life too, because it's such a social thing for them too. Having drinks with coworkers at the end of the day, and then they get ostracized if they're not doing that. You know, I was in the corporate environment prior to doing this full time, and it was an everyday thing, going out for drinks for happy hour right next door, you know, in this lavish bar, and no good ever came of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of adult peer pressure I get from a lot of clients as well. They're like,
people literally get passed over for promotions because they don't drink and participate in social functions like that. Like, and that's bullshit.
I will never forget overhearing it. This was when I was still drinking, but I overheard a boss once say about someone he just interviewed. Well, she says she doesn't drink, and I just can't picture her in this environment.
Right.
Like that blew me away. Yeah.
Right.
Holy shit, what if she was the perfect candidate? And anyway, toxic work culture is a huge enabler.
It really is.
And, you know, for somebody who realizes they have a drinking problem or they're in early recovery, it can be terrifying. You know, it can be a really scary place to be because you are afraid you're going to miss a seat at the table. You're going to get passed over for promotions, or people are going to stop including you just in simple after work drinks, and you're going to miss being part of the company culture. And yet, you know, you're trying to do the best thing on earth for you and for your family. So it's a real catch-22.
Yeah. That corporate culture alcohol is a big part of it. And for men, yes, but even more so for women, because then they have the dual-edged sword of, you know, being a woman in corporate, which is already tough enough, or women in the workplace, period. Then they have the burdens of jumping through hoops to try to make people like them simply because they don't drink. They could be an amazing person and crushing their work and super efficient and delivering results, but because they decided not to drink, they're no longer a good fit.
Yeah, I think it is especially hard. You know, I was in the corporate world for 20 years, and I think I worked so hard to go up the corporate ladder. And once I became a mom, I felt like I went down 2 or 3 rungs. You know, all of a sudden I'm not fun anymore because I have to leave work on time and I can't go to, you know, the bar for drinks. And then when I quit drinking, it was just all downhill from there. Like I wasn't even part of the conversation anymore. And in part, that was my own doing because I wasn't putting myself out there and putting myself in really uncomfortable positions, like, you know, going out to the bar for 3 or 4 hours or going to those conferences where everyone gets shit-faced. But at the same time, you know, I think there was automatically kind of a label on my head, like she's a family person now. She's not a party girl anymore.
Not a team player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that was at the point where I was like, I think my corporate lifestyle is probably over at this point. I don't see it ever going up from here unless I decide to, you know, become a raging alcoholic again. And then I'll keep going up.
Right. Right.
Well, we don't want that
Nothing
happening.
will stop me.
Right. Well, now you have a book coming out, right?
Yeah. So I have a book coming out next fall. So I still have like 8 months of we're doing editing and whatnot, but the book's called It's Not About the Wine, The Loaded Truth Behind Mommy Wine Culture. It's a lot about what we talked about today, but I do really delve into workplace culture. I talk about postpartum depression and the impacts of alcohol. I talk about the impacts of alcohol on anxiety. I talk about the correlation between eating disorders and alcohol. And then similar things we see from the alcohol industry in other industries as well, such as diet and beauty industries, MLMs, and lean in hustle culture. Like I think we are getting targeted from a lot of different angles on really hitting our weak spots or parts where we're struggling. And we're easy targets because we are in probably one of the hardest spots of our lives. If you're in this age of, motherhood, post-pandemic, trying to get back situated, and maybe you developed a drinking problem, you are not on top of your game, and a hard place to be. So how do you get yourself out of that if you have found yourself kind of caught in this really toxic drinking cycle?
Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait for that to come out.
When your book does come out, will you be doing like a book tour and things like that? Because if so, let's get you back in here in about a year from now.
Oh, I'd love that. It's going to be kind of a crazy couple of months. I've never done anything like this, but yeah, we'll do a book tour and
super exciting.
All sorts of promotion. So thank you. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, super fun. And I'd like to talk about like eating disorders and drinking again, because that was something that I struggled with, and I didn't even realize it or correlate the two until I started getting sober. And I was like, oh my fucking God, I had an eating disorder. And I was like, the alcohol was like part of that, because every time I wanted to quit drinking, I would do some fad diet shit, right? I would do like some like weird fasting thing for like 14 days. I would do some 30-day whatever. And then every time I went back to drinking, I would binge even more in the drinking and then do some crazy eating. Eating and the drinking always went back to back. And it was so disordered.
I had no idea that there was a correlation. I just thought I was fucked up from two different sides.
Yeah,
and then I realized, oh my God, like light bulb moment. Like they all, are feeding off the same thing.
Absolutely.
Essentially. And that was really fascinating to me because, I struggled with bulimia for maybe 20 years, so there was some extreme overlap between my substance abuse and my bulimia. And not once, in all the years I was in therapy, did anybody ever say anything about how those two are kind of trying to achieve the same angles. So that's something I try to talk about a lot too, just because I feel like that awareness is very important, especially for the younger women who might be starting to struggle with eating disorders. It's going to be a future red flag for them, even if they've never touched alcohol at this point.
Yeah, it was like all about control for me. For sure. And then not to mention the mental health issues that were correlated with all that too, like my anxiety. I mean, it was like a shitstorm for me, like massive depression, anxiety, issues with eating. It was like a cluster. I was a roller coaster of emotions, crying, anger.
Yeah. And nobody wants to see that or hear that.
No.
We drink, and then, people are like, you're so fun. You're such a fun drinker. That's because I'm not crying.
Right. I am a fucking hot mess. You have no idea.
Exactly.
I was hoping someone would give me an intervention. I'm like, why doesn't anyone see that I am fucking out of my mind? It was like I was crying for help, but not really telling anybody that I actually needed help, Yeah.
I mean, I feel like alcohol and food can do they're so impactful for achieving, this way of basically self-sabotaging without anybody having to know. It's a perfect way for us to kill ourselves from the inside.
Yeah.
Without causing a scene or making a big mess. And I 100% look back on both of my issues with food and alcohol and realize it was just a way to shut me up and keep me quiet, for a really long time for myself. Like then I'm not complaining. Then I'm not pissing people off. And people seem to like me when I'm drunk and sassy. And when I'm skinny, shit, people really like me when I'm skinny. And it's the perfect storm.
Yeah, right. Fun, skinny. That's like your perfect person right there, right? But inside you're fucking dying.
Not healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't sustainable.
Definitely not.
It was so awesome talking to you. I can't believe it's like 2:00 already. That went by like.
That was fun.
That was so fun. Like, oh my God.
Where did time go?
I know, right? How can everyone find you? I know. Let's talk about the Sober Mom Squad. If someone wants to, come join that, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so we still have our free Wednesday meeting every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. Just go to sobermomsquad.com.
Okay.
Check it out.
Amazing.
And then if you want to find me on social media, I'm at the Ultimate Moms Challenge. And you can find me there. And then my book, if you follow me on social, I'll be sure to announce when you can pre-order my book, which will come out next September.
Awesome. That's very exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, congrats.
I'm excited. I've got it sitting here on my computer right now. I'm rereading her spell check, and I want to just throw my head against the wall. This is not fun. But
the editing part, yeah.
I
just want this out to people.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. This part's hard.
Yeah.
But it's been it's been a work in progress for sure. I started writing this book before the COVID pandemic, and then the pandemic literally changed the entire book.
I bet.
Yeah, I bet.
A very different book than it was before, and for the better. I'm really excited to share what I found out.
And it's called It's Not About the Wine?
Yeah.
Love it.
It's not about the wine.
Super excited. Fall of 2023.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you said yes and to come on. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, so I'm super excited that you are here.
Yeah, we should do a TikTok thing together sometime too. I love your TikTok.
I'd love to.
So
I would absolutely. We can go live together.
Yep.
Let's keep in touch for sure.
Okay. Sounds good. And it's so nice to meet you, Matt.
Likewise, Celeste. It was amazing.
Well, I really appreciate the time, and thank you so much for thinking of me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
We appreciate it.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, so why not share with a friend who needs to hear it? Send us a DM on Instagram or email us at cutthecrappod@gmail.com and join our Patreon at patreon.com/cutthecrappodcast. As always, we appreciate you, and thanks for